Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome. I incredibly hate doing shows like this because it's a show of sorrow. They say, death is supposed to be a celebration, that you should be happy for the person and for uh, leaving this world to a better life and things of that nature. It still doesn't solve or cure the hurt that you hold on to. We've had two very high profile deaths, at least in the sci-fi world, of people we've known and worked with. And with my personal experiences, I'll share those first before we bring up a panel of people. I'm still waiting for a couple more, but they may be having computer problems. But other than Mira Furlan, who passed, and you knew her as Delenn from Babylon 5, she passed tragically 1 year younger than our other individual who passed as of last night, I do believe, or this morning, and his name is Richard Arnold. And okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading a message from Tim. Audio not great from my end, just FYI. That must be my audio. Tim, I see you. Wave at me if I sound really bad or crappy. Kind of, yeah. Yitty. All right, folks, bear with me. Let me see if I can try another. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. How do I sound now, Tim? Better? I see you nodding. Okay. Folks, like I had mentioned before, people that are, you get out of 2020. We've been complaining about 2020 since last March, talking about we can't wait until this year is over with. And then wham, bang, boom, the beginning, the absolute first month out of the freaking door, 2021 swings around and says, whoa, I'm not finished yet. And we start to lose people. It's a horrible beginning. I'm not really happy about what has happened, especially yesterday morning, but we're going to go ahead and do this. I put together this show rather hastily, so please bear with me trying to get my thoughts together. I don't know exactly what it is I have to say that will make any sense or be coherent to any of you, but I have a panel of good friends here, people I've worked with in the past, people I've known for 35 plus years or so, who probably know this man better than I do. But we're going to be happy to hear from them today. If you don't know who this gentleman is, this is Richard Arnold, and Richard Arnold is secondly, a Star Trek consultant, archivist, the go-to man for anything Star Trek related, from as far back as the original series until I think he was hired during the TNG days, I do believe. And if you don't know anything about Star Trek, shame on you. But what we know of Star Trek and our panelists that are going to be coming up is out of all of the conventions that we have attended, Richard has pretty much been a staple at those shows. We know of him when we see him. He started selling merchandise, and he was still a friend to a lot of classic Trek celebrities, present day celebrities, shall I say. Richard was a right-hand man to Gene Roddenberry. Okay, and I'll show you something that will explain Richard to you. In fact, this is probably a good time than any to show you this. So please watch this for a little bit. I can't play it all, but I'll play as much as I can before I return.
Richard, you worked with Gene Roddenberry on the original series.
Not the original series. I'm not quite that old. No.
Okay.
I worked with him from 1976 until 1991. So from the development of Star Trek Phase 2 up through the 5th season of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
What was your involvement then? Tell me all about that.
Well, it started off as just being a fan. I met him at the first Star Trek convention in New York in 1972, and I moved out to Los Angeles a couple of years later, and then he moved back onto the Paramount lot. He had been up at Universal, and they started putting together this second series, and I was coming over to run Gracie Whitney's fan club using a spare office that they had and a typewriter, and then they discovered, Gene and Susan Sackett, his assistant, that I had a very good working knowledge of the show. And when fan mail would come in with questions, or other offices on the lot would call over with questions, merchandising or publicity or home video, whatever, I could answer them off the top of my head. They didn't have to look anything up.
So it's almost encyclopedic.
Yeah, well, eidetic. It's not photograph, it's eidetic. So I became very useful to them, and I started doing less and less of the fan club and more of helping them out, and eventually that became my own office. I had my own phone extension. I had an overhead number to charge supplies to. I had my name over the door. I had everything except a salary for about 10 years. And then Gene decided it was time the studio started paying me, so I became officially the studio's resident Star Trek expert in 1986.
That's a dream come true for any fan. It's an absolute success story.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I never believed what was happening, and I think in 1978, when we did Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and as a thank you, Gene made a lot of us extras, I thought, well, that's it. That's the icing on the cake. It can't possibly get better than this. And the next, 30 plus years that have happened since then, the icing has just gotten thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, including being in the last film as well. So
fantastic. What part did you play?
I was one of the Romulans, and yes, they did shave our heads.
Oh, wow.
They really did. Yeah, it's very cold.
Grown back really well.
Oh yeah, it only took a couple of weeks actually.
Oh, what's the secret? I wish mine would. Have you got any really obscure facts for me?
Well, I know so many of them.
You've got to know
in what area? In what area?
I don't know. Pick something that's just so weird you're going to blow me
away.
Okay,
this is a weird one. There's an episode of the original series called Charlie X. Okay. Gene was not much of an egotist. He was very happy to blame everybody else for the success of Star Trek. But the fact is that it was his baby. So in Charlie X, there was a scene where Kirk tells the galley chef that if he can't make the artificial, if he can't make real turkey, at least try to make the artificial turkey look real.
Okay, that one looked like it cut out on us. I don't know why, but at least you got a feel and a taste of Mr. Richard Arnold. Mr. Richard Arnold passed in his sleep, luckily, and he was suffering from cancer. I think he was recovering from cancer. There was some recurrence of cancer. Something happened, and he had moved back to be with his family in Missouri, I do believe. So Richard was living in LA at the time before he moved, of course, and it was saddening. It was actually a shock to hear about this today. I'm going to bring up my first guest. This gentleman, if you don't know or have never heard of Volcon conventions, now this is before the days of the big box shows that are out there now, held in arenas that can hold 30, 40, $50,000 people. Joe Most has been a friend of mine for a good guy, close to 40 years, I think. I'm not gonna make him lie, but I'll lie all I want. It's been a long time, and he had Richard at more conventions than I could shake a stick at. But his relationship is vast, and I want to talk a little bit with Joe about Richard. Hey, Joe, buddy, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. You, Mark?
Oh, you slowed up there. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Can you tell me the first time you've had Richard at a show?
I don't remember, but I will tell you that he probably done about maybe 30 of my shows around the country.
Okay.
But when I was getting you the pictures today, I realized that I think out of the 12 Star Trek cruises I did, he was in about 8 of them. He was in the first one that I did in 1987, and he was in the last one that I did to Alaska in 2007. And wow. Mark, let me say, Richard is down at the bottom. If you're looking at the picture, third from the left, blue shirt on the floor.
Yep,
And
I
this
see him.
cruise, I don't know what cruise that was.
Yeah, it says here in the picture you sent me 93.
It had to be. Is that the one with the Klingons? No, it's not.
I
This had to
don't
be
remember.
either probably a 93 or a 95.
Yeah, you're listing here.
91 had Gene Roddenberry.
Right, 91 we had Gene, but this one is listed as 93 in the list. Yeah, so that's really interesting. So let me ask you, you and I, and in fact, I have to thank you because I remember we went out to meet Richard in Hollywood. We were also going to visit, well, we did. We visited the set of Next Generation before it had debuted on television. And I remember specifically, I think that's probably when I was introduced to Richard. I don't know if I had met him prior to that, but we were at the studio, and that's where we were. He introduced us to Gene, and Richard took us, I think, on a little tour. I think. Refresh my memory. Do you remember when we were in?
Okay, we were getting ready to go. One thing about I remember this trip, I think with me, that we were supposed to go on the set. Either I think it was after the cruise, but we would decide. Were you with me? We decided to go and look at the Beverly Mansion.
Yes, I did, buddy boy, and that is a famous story. Oh my God! Finish. Go ahead. Finish telling. I'll give you the opportunity because I'm jumping at when to tell this story.
Okay, we were there looking at the mansion. We were out in the front gate, and we see this guy running or trotting, whatever you call, coming towards jogging. And I didn't even know who he was, and I don't know if it was Dawn.
It was Dawn. It was Dawn.
Dawn says, "That's Patrick Stewart. That's the new captain." About it. So we met him on the set. I don't know if it was before the cruise, after the cruise. That was the first time we met Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, I think it was the next day when we went to the studio, but we didn't believe Dawn because we're sitting here with our cameras and we're so excited because we are in front of the Beverly Hillbillies mansion. So click, 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 click. And of course, I looked to the right or the left. I can't remember direction for a while and did see this bald guy jogging.
We're looking at from our right.
Okay, but Dawn was in that same direction, but she came toward us after he had passed us and said, "Do you guys know who that is? Do you guys know who that is?" And we're like, and it was, of course, Patrick Stewart. Now, like I said, this was before the show even debuted on television, before TNG. But that was our first meeting of Patrick Stewart at the time because we were in LA to go to the studio and to sit in Richard Arnold's office, which was near across the hall, down the hall from Gene Roddenberry's. I can't remember where it was actually located. But that was
on the third floor.
Oh, Gene was on the third floor. Richard was on the second. Yes, I remember the stairs. Yes, I remember that. But that was just absolutely incredible occasion. Let me ask you something. Like myself, how impressed were you by Richard's knowledge of all things Star Trek?
I was very impressed. I mean, he knew everything. That was one of the reasons I invited him to many of my shows, because he was able to bring slides and stuff on shows that were being filmed but had not aired yet.
Right.
We had
that had
at our shows to shows that were going to air in the next month or so.
And a lot of those times was before, the internet was basically big time, up and running, the whole 9 yards. I think during those times, if I had to somehow upload a picture onto, what did I have? I either had Genie. I didn't have CompuServe. I never had CompuServe, or AOL. Genie or AOL.
I had Genie. AOL started, I think it was in 1989, because
right.
started, I found out about it. I still have my same email address going over 30 years now.
Wow.
And Gene
Wow. Good grief. So it was really impossible to, I mean, you couldn't do video, and uploading pictures, you had to wait, whatever. I think I grew a beard by the time I had a picture finally upload onto the internet during that time. But these were the days of the smaller conventions where you usually max out at 1,500 people in a ballroom at a hotel. These were the days when we had people like David McDonald and, of course, Richard Arnold, who brought, like you said, all these things from the set that hadn't been shown yet. And we'd show them on a slide projector on a screen in the main ballroom. And this is how we basically got our news about Star Trek and anything sci-fi related. That was because of Dave McDonald and Richard Arnold. They brought us stuff that it's like, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. I remember we did a show here in Orlando. We were at the hotel. No, I don't know where it was. I take it back. But we all watched the best of both Borgs, or the best of both worlds during that time. And that's when we had the cliffhanger. And we all screamed at the end because we didn't know what was going to happen next. But there was, Richard Arnold at some point doing an upcoming show who kind of filled us in. So that was great. Let me bring up another one of our guests who we have here. And we're going to all stay on together and kind of share stories. Joe, I know you hadn't met Tim Gaskell. Tim Gaskell I had met, I think, Tim, the year, but you were working for CBS at the time. Yeah. That was CBS Viacom, or was that, tell me what you and Mark Wade and you guys back in those offices, what were you doing back then?
So we were running the official Star Trek website. So I started doing that in 2000. And from 2000 to the end of 2007, so basically 8 years. And we were on the lot for most of that. And then finally, at the last couple of years, we got moved into other offices when the Viacom CBS split happened in 2005. So we spent a couple of years off the lot. But we still had, kind of access to the shows and everything. But it was the StarTrek.com. And so, but prior to that, I was with licensing at Paramount, and prior to that, I was with home video for Paramount in London when I met Richard in 1991, so almost 30 years ago. And Richard had come over with Gene Roddenberry, and it was to attend the video. There were their home video awards that happened every year, and it was a big deal. One year we had Eddie Murphy, for example, to talk about big stars when Eddie was the biggest thing on the planet. So the home video awards were big, and Gene Roddenberry came over with Richard, and I met Richard on that trip. But unfortunately, Gene, when he came into our offices, I was away. I was out of the office at our duplication plant up in Aylesbury in England, and I didn't meet Gene, and that was my only chance because Gene died later that year. So that was kind of one of the big disappointments in my life, is I didn't get to meet Gene. But anyway, I did meet Richard and formed a great friendship with Richard. And subsequently, until 1998, while I was in the UK, I went to multiple conventions, and Richard was at virtually every single one. And he introduced, he kind of introduced me to that world, the kind of convention world. He also introduced me to people, and he would get me backstage to meet the people and stuff. And this was back when, so this is the licensing days. And then also while I was in licensing, we started doing QVC. I started doing a QVC Star Trek hour that started out being weekly, and then bi-weekly, and then monthly once. But I did that for several years. And one time when Richard was over, I was like, okay, we got to get Richard on to do QVC. I don't know if we have footage of that anywhere, but Richard and I kind of co-hosted a Star Trek hour, 2-hour show. They often ran 2 hours. And, he provided his unique insight and commentary on the show. The great thing about Richard was as he said, he had this eidetic memory or whatever, where he could recall the facts and figures and the show numbers and the show names and the guest stars and the problems with the guest stars and the great things about the guest stars or the actors or whatever. He had this encyclopedic knowledge that we kind of relied on. I relied on it for my job at the home video side, because I used to write I would write booklets and things for home video releases. We would do marketing stuff for Star Trek on video. Then when I came over to the States to work at Paramount, while I was in London, I got hired to come to Los Angeles and move back. I was in London. I'm from California, but I lived in London for about 13 years, and then got the job at Paramount. So I moved my wife and son over here, and we've been in LA ever since in 1998. But throughout this time, so Richard kind of provided not only his ample knowledge of Star Trek and connections and everything, also with great behind the scenes gossip and stuff, nothing too tawdry, but lots of, Richard was unfiltered a lot, and that was kind of part of his charm. A lot of you know that. But the good thing was, so after all of that, I remember when the first Star Trek reboot movie came out. Was that 2007? What year was that? Or
7 or 9? I don't know which.
Anyway,
which one it was. Yeah.
So it was in production. It was Comic-Con. I was in San Diego at Comic-Con, and we were covering for StarTrek.com. We were covering the event, and for some reason, when they had let's see, Zachary Quinto's there, and other people were there, J.J. Abrams and everybody. I don't know if anybody was there, but it was a big deal. It was in the big hall, and so I'm in with my team. We're kind of filming it and getting interviews and such. And Richard was there, and he couldn't get in. And he pulled me aside and he says, "Tim, is there any way you can get me in?" And I said, "Just hang here and I'll have a word." So I went, spoke to Comic-Con people, and I said, "Look, Richard Arnold. He was Gene Roddenberry's assistant for years, and he's a Star Trek mensch, and he knows everything about it, and he's very important to the cause." And so we got him in, and Richard saw the presentation. He was eternally grateful. So I figured that was the least I could do, was kind of payback for all the years of support and help that he gave me. And and over the years, it was I kept in contact with him right to the end. And about a month ago, I texted him and just said, "How are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm back home. I'm resting." And it was kind of, he didn't really give a lot away. He was kind of quiet, didn't say much. And then on Inauguration Day, which I knew he would be very happy about, I texted him again, got no response. And then I was like, okay, I know something's up, because about a year ago in April, we were chatting, and he said, "I've got about a year to go." And I said, "Hang in there, be strong, buddy. We're all pulling for you." And sadly, it wasn't quite a year. It's about 9 months. But so it was kind of a bit of a surprise, because he kind of came out of the blue. But not that I was shocked, but I was, I figured, oftentimes they say you got a year, and oftentimes people go 2-3 years, they go way, way beyond it. But this was kind of a bit under it. But given the gravity of his disease and everything, I wasn't too surprised, but it was still a shock.
Well, we all know, well, most of us knew that Richard was battling cancer. In fact, I remember years ago when I saw him, I'd ask him about the weight loss. I said, "Wow, dude, you really lost a lot of weight. What are you doing to do that? Blah, 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 blah." And, straight face, but jokingly, he said, "Cancer," and it's, gobsmacked, silent, crickets. I felt bad, but, Richard has always been a fighter, whether he was
He was
defending his life.
diabetic as well.
Say again?
He was diabetic as well.
Yes, we both were. We talked about our diabetes together all the time and what we're doing, what we're eating, whatever. Do we have a final name? I'm not going to say cause, but the name of the cancer that he was fighting?
Well, I think it was prostate, but I could check. I think it was either prostate or something like that. Yeah.
Right. This is a surprise to all of us, mainly because we know he had dropped off the radar. Much like my other friend Joe, Dave McDonald, I haven't heard hide or hair of him either. Have you?
Well, only every once in a while when I post pictures. He's on Facebook with me.
Well, yeah, I know he was with me, but he was, pretty much on the Starlog magazine page he was posting. So we haven't heard much about him, but I pray that everything's all fine and he's just staying away from everything else, which is cool and is okay. But in terms of Richard, I had not heard from him. Usually he would come on and comment. Let me bring my other guest up. This is half of the Duff twins. This is Pat Duff of Phil and Pat Duff fame. How you doing, brother?
Great, all circumstances considered.
Yeah, I'm it's we all have cabin fever right now. I've been locked up since I actually had COVID before it had a name. So literally, I think a year ago today, I was stricken and treating it as the flu because nothing in the news about this thing called COVID had appeared until the following month, I think the middle of February. And luckily I beat it at home. But along with the cabin fever, we're now getting really fatigued with the deaths, man. I mean, either we're having friends, celebrities that are dying from the disease itself. We're having our friends and celebrities dying from something else. And the combination of the two is like an avalanche on me right now. And it's the first freaking month of a year that we were looking forward to. And I am really despondent. I'm depressed, not totally because of the cabin fever, but the fact that our friends are going too soon. Mira Furlan was 65. Richard was 66. I think they both still had a good 20, 25 years left in them and, didn't make it. So tell me a little bit about how you know Richard and any interesting stories, occasions, or things that you can come up with about Richard.
So, Mark, actually, after hearing Joe and Tim and you talk, I'm actually shocked at this point to say, as a senior in high school, I went to what was my fourth convention in St. Louis, Missouri in April of 1982.
Wow.
And one of the major ringleaders of the con committee was Denny Arnold, which is
Danny.
Richard's mom, Denny.
What?
So, generally speaking, at Space Trek, Denny was actually introducing the guests. So, like, DeForest Kelley came on, and Denny would say, Denny did a lot of the announcing and, sort of the housekeeping announcements or whatever. So, my brother and we lived in the middle of the state, Columbia, Missouri. We'd been to 3 conventions in Kansas City in 77, 78, and 80, which were the years they had them. And I think those guys ran out of gas. And so we'd been 2 years without a convention. We go to St. Louis. And, that was the day of the era of the 3-day kind of all-day conventions. So we got there like 11 o'clock in the morning, registered, went straight into the ballroom, and it was dark, and somebody was presenting. And it was this guy doing a behind-the-scenes slideshow of the sets. Now, you have to remember, this is before Star Trek II came out. So it was only Star Trek the Motion Picture. This guy was showing slides of the sets and a little bit of the motion picture and the rec deck stuff, where Susan Sackett and Jimmy Doohan's kids were in it. And it was Richard Arnold. So my brother and I met Richard Arnold there at a convention that his mom was on the con committee for in April of '82. Those guys didn't have the energy in them to do a con every year, so they did one in '82 and '84. So we came back in '84, and the minute we showed back up in '84, Richard was like, "How are you guys?" I mean, like we were best friends in the world, after meeting him 2 years prior. And at that point in time, so that was that 3 had come out at that convention already. And he's like, well, if you're ever in LA, come out and I'll take you to the sets. And that remarkable piece of video that you showed, Mark, the fact that he volunteered for Gene, and he did not get one dime from Paramount until 1986. They actually gave him a pittance of a salary. He was doing everything absolutely for free at that point in time. In fact, when we met him, he was still his pay job was, he was essentially a bellman for the Bonaventure Hotel. And the way that those guys made money is they sort of privateered. So if you were a bellman at the Bonaventure Hotel and you took a guy up to his room and he's like, I really am like looking for like, I don't know, a bottle of wine or a fifth of Jack, or I need a pack of Luckies or whatever. All the bellmen would keep a stash of this stuff, and then they would sell it to these, hotel guests, and then the hotel guests would just tip them outrageously, and they made way more money than they made by being on the staff of the hotel. But so Richard had to support himself, doing the Grace Lee Whitney fan club thing and answering fan letters for Star Trek for Gene, because obviously Susan Sackett was Gene's secretary. Richard, in those years of the 80s that I knew him, he had cards. At one point, I think his first card with Paramount address, unpaid, said Star Trek expert, and I think then that evolved into his Star Trek archivist business card. But so my brother and I ended up going to Los Angeles, must have been like March-ish of '85. And he's like, oh yeah, come on out, I'll take you through the sets. And he took us through the standing sets, which had been constructed for the aborted version of the Phase 2 series, turned into the motion picture sets, and then subsequently 2 and 3 had been shot on them. He took us through all the sets. The bridge at that point in time was still in the USS Grissom configuration, and that do not enter tape was still on the doors to Spock's quarters. But the first Space Trek we went to, he sort of did the complete ins and outs of the sets. So it was remarkable, knowing that those were built off essentially the same floor plan, not detail, as the original series, to just sort of have Richard walk you through there, and you're like, oh my God, this is the Enterprise. But so yeah, my brother and I knew Richard the best in the 80s, in the heyday of Star Trek. And then as Next Generation came on, my brother and I both had relocated to Washington, D.C. metropolitan area in '87, which would have been shortly right around the time we met you, 87, 88-ish, somewhere at conventions in Baltimore. And then, of course, the Next Generation came on, and it was the second coming of Star Trek.
I'm gobsmacked. That was an incredible story, and I'm just finding this out. I've known you for what, 30 years now, maybe 35.
I assumed you knew him before I did.
I think the only way, I don't know if he ever came to a shore leave or Farpoint in Baltimore before I joined Joe and his crew with Vulcans, because I was working with Joe with Vulcans before the C-Trek cruises came around. And of course, we've known Richard, way before then, because we were bringing him to shows. But you're saying that you met him in '81. Is that correct?
'82. 82.
82.
April of 82.
Yeah, that you met him in 80.
Before Wrath of Khan came out.
Wow. No, you obviously knew Richard longer than all of us, I think,
Yeah,
put together
definitely.
right now.
What's also funny about that, Mark, is you know Jim Brooks, he sold the story for
Yes.
Rex Lair.
Yes, Jim Brooks. Yes, I do.
Jim Brooks, my brother and I actually met through Richard, but my brother and I knew Richard, and Mark Okrand in DC,
Right.
Baltimore, knew
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
But we didn't meet Mark through Richard. So we set up all these people lined up that were friends with Richard.
Well, that's interesting because
didn't know each other because of him.
And I knew Mark Okrand because of the Baltimore Crew long before I knew you and Richard. For those that are watching who don't know who Mark Okrand is, Mark Okrand created the Klingon language as well as the Vulcan language and a few other races. And Mark has always been a part of our crew in the Baltimore convention scene at that time. And, I didn't even look at him as anybody important, because he was a buddy. He was one of, the guy next door or whatever. And it's really interesting. I feel like Kevin Bacon right now. We all, 8 degrees of everything,
Well,
and
it's ironic that we all sort of knew Richard before we knew each other and
Yeah.
didn't meet through him necessarily.
That's interesting. I want Joe to get involved in this right now because he's going to have to help me. Joe provided me with all the photos for today. And there's some of these that, number one, scared the living daylights out of me. I'll show you one that scared the living daylights out of me. All right, who the hell's the black guy? you do realize that's me, right? With the red shirt on.
Hey,
And standing in front of me a bit, that's Will Wheaton's dad.
Yes.
Joe, who else is in this picture?
I think that's Guy Vardaman.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is
it
Guy
for sure.
Vardaman.
Yep.
That is Guy Vardaman.
It's Will's brother.
Where?
The kid right in there in the front. That's Will's brother.
That's Will's brother. Okay. And Will Wheaton's dad, of course, like I mentioned. Go ahead, Joe.
I don't know who the others are.
All right, but this was in two.
You know how that picture came about?
No, is that before the what do you call that boat ride we had?
That's the airboat ride. Here's what happened. We had all the stars set to come in for the Star Trek cruise. It was the 91 Star Trek cruise, and we had all the stars booked on Eastern Airlines, and Eastern filed bankruptcy, so we had to move all the stars to Continental Airlines, which was the only one that would fly from South Florida, but out of Fort Lauderdale. So we had to fly them in to Fort Lauderdale, and then we had to hire a bus to bring them down to Miami, to the port of Miami. And what happened was, since there was no way to get them out after the cruise, to get them back on to a much later flight after the ship came in, and we had nowhere to put them, and we weren't about to get something like maybe a dozen hotel rooms to put them up for about 6 hours. So we rented a bus, and we took them out to the Everglades, and we gave everybody we went to a couple of places in the Everglades, and we took them on an airboat ride and everything.
Yeah, in fact, we had I think we had Jimmy Doohan on that ride.
Yep.
And we had George. I think we had Walter.
Yes.
Wow, man, I'm looking at this photo right now, and I'm seeing even a few people that aren't with us anymore. If you guys notice, third seat is Will Wheaton.
And you're
okay. Yeah, I'm sitting next to Will. That's Will's dad in front, standing up. I see Ruth Ann Devlin, who was your partner with Volcon. Is that Luke? What's that, Joe?
That was my partner. Ruth Ann, she's sitting two seats behind Will.
Correct. And is that Lou all the way in the back, standing up?
Yes.
He's gone. Ruth Ann is gone. Who's that in front of Will? Is that Dawn? Who is that?
No, that's Guy Vardaman.
Is that Guy in front of Will? And there's Richard Arnold sitting next to Guy.
Yeah, because we had everybody on the same flights.
Right.
The only
Wow.
the only one that didn't want to go on this cruise was Nichelle. So we put her up in a hotel, and then she found her own way to the airport.
To the airport. Right, right, right. This is this in the Bahamas or are we still in the
No. This is also what we did was if you look at the guy all the way to the left, far left, next to Dawn.
Yes.
That was our bus driver. This is the Everglades, and we decided to do a group shot. So if you
Right.
look hard, you'll find Jimmy's up in the back over there. Mark Leonard's next to him. And Mark and Roberta Leonard.
Right.
There.
Yes. Yep. I see him in the middle there, sort of.
Very, very back over there with a hat on.
Yeah, that's Will's dad to the far right with the hat on. He and I are almost the same height.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
laying down on the ground is Will. He's got his leg up, one of his legs up.
Oh, yes, it's bent. Yes, that's Will Wheaton laying down on his back. Yeah.
Go to the right of Will. That's Walter Koenig.
Oh, yep. Same blue shirt, dark blue shirt.
And if you look at Will's leg where he has the cross upwards, that's George right next to him.
That's George. Where's Mama Son? Where's Mama Son? Mama Son. Oh, I see her. It's right next to George.
11 o'clock from George's head.
Got it. Mama Son was George Takei's mom, who was with us at that time. She's gone as well. Oh man.
And if you go all the way, can you bring
Whoops.
Go all the way to the right hand, the head next to the last one. That's William, and that's William Campbell, and his wife is to his right.
Teresa. Yeah. Is that Dave McDonald kneeling?
Yeah, kneeling down.
Okay. Wow.
And if you look at the other one, Dave was in that same car you were on.
Where's Richard? Is he next to Will's dad?
Richard,
or behind Grace Lee Whitney?
Will's dad, yes.
Yep, Grace Lee Whitney.
If you look, Grace Lee Whitney is right in front of Richard, and if you look to the right of Richard, that's Carol Page, my partner with the crew.
Carol Page. That's right. This is such a valuable photo, so much history with people who are still with us and who are not, with people who have grown up into men and gone on to be just as successful. Speaking of Will, of course.
Mark.
Yeah.
Look at Guy Vardaman with his arms up.
Yes.
The person right underneath his arm with the glasses on, that's Denise Crosby.
That's Denise Crosby next to Ruth Ann.
Yep.
Wow, this is a historic picture here. And it's a shame that we have to speak about the ones that are no longer here that are in that photo, specifically today, speaking about, of course, our friend Richard Arnold. And this is Denise Crosby as well.
Right. Bill Campbell.
Bill Campbell.
Mark Leonard.
Yep, speaking of Mark Leonard. Look at this, guys. You know, 3 of these people are no longer here. Richard was an incredible source of information that we all know. It's the reason why Creation, for their annual Star Trek conventions, brought him out each and every year, because he was just a bevy of knowledge. He was great on stage. He really knew how to communicate to the fans, and that is very, very important, because with his knowledge of Star Trek, with his association with Gene Roddenberry, it was a gold mine for the people that were sitting out in the seats. They could ask questions, any question whatsoever Star Trek related, and he can bring up the if, whys, ors, and wheres. I can't throw back answers to the fans as quickly as, or not even quickly at all, like Richard did. And the actors themselves were, oh my God, look at that. Is that Will Wheaton, the one that's sitting straight up, 2 rows back?
Yes.
Will is in the middle, and right behind Will are Mark Leonard and Bill Campbell.
Yep.
If you look to the right of the screen of Will Wheaton, you'll see John Delancey with his child.
Uh-huh. I see Robin Curtis, left side, far right.
Yep.
Robin Curtis.
Trying to see who else.
This was, let me think. Which Sea Trek was this? Do you know?
Okay.
Was that the same year, 93, I think?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to bring many of these guests over and over. Our cruises were every other year. So
Right.
as more and more shows popped up, like Deep Space Nine, then we started bringing in Deep Space Nine guests, and we cut back on others because we can only take so many.
Yeah, sure. But so how many of them were Richard on?
From what I could tell today, when I was looking for your pictures, Richard was on 8 of the 12 Star Trek cruises, and he
8 of the
was
12.
in the first one, and he was on the last one.
Oh my God, he was actually on. That was Admiral Cruise Lines, and that was what the hell is the name of that ship we were on?
It was the SS Emerald Seas, and then
yes, SS Emerald Seas.
And the next one was SS Azure Seas out of Los Angeles.
LA, I remember that.
In Emerald Seas.
Right, and there's Richard in the back row, guys. If he's standing up on the right side, that's Richard. He always wore, these Hawaiian style shirts. If you know Richard from conventions, you can't miss Richard, because of the Hawaiian style shirts. Usually sitting behind his table selling his cards.
Yeah.
Which were those Topps cards that Richard sold?
I think there were a few different ones, but yeah.
Mainly,
yeah, and
mainly Topps. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I worked on some of those, and then I also Richard did those great slide presentations. At one point, I was sending him some slides, and then we'd get on the phone and we'd go over like who all was in the slide. So he had all the details and episode numbers and episode titles and everything like that. So so that happened for a while. And then what's funny is before that, when he was when I was still in England, I used to get asked to do some kind of Richard Arnold style talks at public libraries around London. And I would pull the slides and do slideshows just like Richard.
Yeah, that was a good pickup for a few of us who kind of did the same thing. But can you Pat or Joe know which convention, the last convention that he fell sick at? I don't know either. Nobody knows. Okay.
I know
he was living in.
The last time I had Richard, which was the cruise in 2007, I didn't have any medical issues.
He did? Say again, Joe?
In 2007, which was the last time I saw Richard, was my last cruise, because I retired right after that. I stopped doing everything. Richard was in good health. He went on a lot of tours. Falling behind or anything. So whatever happened to him, it was after 2007.
Well, I had Richard in Germany for a number of shows, and as far as I knew, he was in perfect health. He looked in perfect health. I remember when he had that massive weight gain, if you guys remember. And it was night and day, because one year I'm saying, wow, what's up, dude? And then another year you see him again, you go, wow, what's up, dude? Because it was just such a drastic change in his weight. Diabetes related, I suffered the same issue. Pre-diabetes, I was a little heavier than I wanted to, and now I can't even make it to 82 pounds. I can't do that. So I know, who is this? Joe, who is
that's Richard.
That is Richard?
If you look at one of the pictures I sent you, He's sitting next to, I don't know if it was, uh,
Character name?
Gene's wife, Major
Oh,
Barrett.
Major. Major.
Major.
Yes. Yes.
Another picture with him without the thing on, with the same.
So,
It would
so
be
this is the
back.
this is the cruise with Gene when Gene and Major was on. Even Rod Roddenberry. Oh my God, I can tell you some stories about Rod. Rod Roddenberry was on that same cruise. Yeah.
I think
Who,
this is Major, and I think she's getting ready.
do his makeup or something?
No, I think Major was getting ready to put
To put the Geordie's visor on.
They were taken back.
Got it. Yeah, they are back to back. Okay, makes more sense now. He's has Geordie's visors on. Yeah, yeah. Isn't that a treat for Major Barrett to actually be putting on Geordie's visor? I should say LeVar Burton's visor on a cruise.
Well, that Major had access to everything in Paramount, so
Yeah, she did. That's somebody else who I miss dearly too. And of course, I see
Garrett.
Richard in the back. That's Garrett Wong right there in the front.
And will you believe it or not, Garrett's talking to you know who?
Who?
My daughter.
What do you mean talking to your? Oh, that. Oh my goodness.
That's actually she's only.
I hadn't seen her since you were carrying her around. I think. Wow.
I've got some wonderful pictures of her and where she's only like 4 months old, and DeForest Kelly's on stage holding her.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that shot. I remember that convention.
Mark, I got something I'd like to tell you about Richard and the first cruise.
Please.
The first cruise was May 1987. And it was May, June, July, August, September. So it was 4 months before the premiere of The Next Generation. And Trek cruise in 87, the fans that went on that, the 940 fans that went on that cruise, were the first people to actually get to see the stars in makeup, because apparently Richard brought the press kit, and he was showing off the 8x10 photos of each of the stars and their makeup. And that
Wow.
had been aired. Nobody had seen them.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool.
I started filming like a day or so before. Matter of fact, because remember we went on the in September we saw it. They were getting ready to start the filming right after that cruise. So he brought all this information. So the fans that went on the cruise were the first people to actually see those photos.
Before Next Generation aired. It's unreal. It's just unfreaking real. There's Richard right there. And you're taking a picture with one of the dining room host or waiter.
And that one
and
2003.
Joe, I really appreciate you sending me these photos, because I would have been digging on Google, and of course Google no way would have what we're seeing here of Richard Arnold, once again, who we lost. Tim, help me, was that this morning or last night?
I didn't get an actual time. I'm assuming it was last night.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was.
So it had to have been last night.
Yeah. And Richard Arnold, ladies and gentlemen, died peacefully in his sleep. And we all here have such major memories and history with Richard Arnold. We're not bragging about it at all. We just had the opportunity of sharing Richard's life and his business. Literally, we watched him work with a microphone in his hand, or with the Topps card in his hand, trading to fans, talking with fans, enjoying fans. And it's just such a shock for everyone that we've lost yet another individual in our sci-fi history. And I had this thought the other day, and I guess it was had to be after Mira Furlan's death. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, some of these folks who we have watched and seen on television were in fact older than us. When we first saw Next Generation, we knew that Jonathan Frakes was older than us. We knew that a few others, but there were also other people on Next Generation, or I'm sorry, in the Star Trek series, who were or are still younger than us or damn near our age. And the association that we've had with people that we knew in person and not just on the screen is like losing a sister or brother. We're literally losing someone who we've sat at dinner with. We've had in-depth conversation, non-Star Trek related, period, who we've gotten drunk with. We've been around these individuals, and it's not like seeing Tom Selleck, as Magnum PI, or seeing any other celebrities from any other shows that we grew up with. Thank God Billy Mooney is still around, because I watched Lost in Space religiously. And Billy and I think, are around about the same age, and realizing that the time that Will Robinson at that age was on TV in front of us, we were the same age. So technically, we grew up together, and
I'm older than you.
Go ahead, Joe. Yeah, I know you are, Joe. Yes, you are older than me, Mr. Geriatric. So you better.
When Bill Mooney was doing space, Lost in Space.
I know you were in Nam, and I know that. I guess Tim and I can fight about this, but I'm probably the second oldest one here. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, Tim, but you can tell me how old you are.
I'm 58.
Oh, Pat, you're the baby in the room. You're what? You lost your.
You're muted.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I ought to unmute you so we can hear that. Say that again, Pat.
I'm 56.
56? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's safe enough for me to say I was 56 once. Okay, fine. I was 58 once. Aha. But these people who we are losing, who we have grown up with, and it's really interesting because I have a lot of friends who either watch any of my shows, Saturday morning cartoons, or any other special shows that I do. They look at folks like, Joe and myself and Pat, from people who know what you have been involved with or where you've been or the whole 9 yards. And they look at us in a level of enviness when, I don't know about you, Joe, but when I got on a cruise with you, or when I was doing Volcons or any of the other conventions in Germany or Atlanta or any other shows that I've done, these folks were just people to me. I didn't see them as a Counselor Troy or number one, or even a Picard. I honestly, and I'm sorry, I'm not making light of this or bragging about this at all. Star Trek, all of the series, all of the movies were just something that I enjoy. I own. Make a liar out of me in a minute. I own nothing Star Trek related in my house. There's nothing in my house that's in all honesty, this is really, I think, other than the photographs that I treasure, because I've never, the only and first person I've ever asked for an autograph from was George Takei. The first and the last. I own no one else's autographs because some people treasure autographs more than I do. So I saw these folks as people I had the pleasure of having conversations with. I admire their work when they're on the screen, but I don't go, absolutely gaga because it's like, oh my God, look what Picard did, and things of that. And that's just me.
Yeah, part of that, Mark. Yeah, I'm the same, and part of that was because I didn't want to mix business with personal kind of thing, So I had to, approached everything professionally. And here's a little anecdote that people watching this may not know. So Richard, when Gene died, Richard was let go from Paramount because he was Gene's assistant. And there followed, I mean, you can stop me if any of this gets too sensitive, there followed, some years of legal back and forth between Richard and Paramount as to, whether it was back pay or royalty, whatever kind of things that he was trying to get. So when I took the job at Paramount Licensing to work on Star Trek books, publishing mainly, they took me in on my first day, and they said one of the heads of licensing took me into her office and sat me down, and very seriously, and she said, "We understand you know Richard Arnold." And I said, "Yeah, I do. I've known Richard for many years." They said, "Okay, well, what you have to know is he's in litigation with Paramount, and so if you have any other dealings with, basically saying, keep us in the loop if there's anything, and just beware that this is going on behind the scenes, whatever." It didn't really affect anything. I did my job, and I still had to consult Richard and, get him to chime in on several things, especially. And then when I moved on to StarTrek.com, I was no longer in licensing. It was kind of a move across. I got headhunted to go over to the website, and I had a bit more freedom, so I could call Richard any damn time I wanted and to get his feedback or information or whatever. And I was still helping out with slides occasionally, and but it gave me more freedom after that. So but that was an aspect that went on for several years, with Paramount and Richard.
So I unmuted myself. I didn't know you were done. I was actually waiting for more, because that was a very, very interesting story that you got into. And we love behind the scenes stories, especially when it involved Richard. Hey, Joe, let me go to Pat. Pat, you have any behind the scenes stories you can tell?
I think we all have ones we can't tell.
Well, yeah, and I'm looking for something that we can. We're not governed by the FCC here, but we still want to keep it within a family kind of PG-13 related kind of scenario here. You got anything for us, Pat?
Well, I'll give you this one since I'm pulling it out on the fly. My brother and I did go to Los Angeles in March of 1986, and they'd sort of tightened up the security on Richard by then. And, and like when we went in 84, he was not getting paid at all. So he had started drawing a little salary, but they figured out that, they couldn't just let anybody sort of who was on the lot wander through Star Trek when it was filming, because it would very quickly explode to be a lot of people. So that was, I believe, when they had the first sort of, if you were involved with the production, you could bring visitors to the set, and it was like 2 times. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was set, you can bring your guests, come see this set shooting whatever's going on for 30 minutes, and then you got to get out of there. So Richard signed us up to do that because obviously lifelong Star Trek fans, it's like, of course you want to come to LA and see some Star Trek filmed, right? So we go, and we're hanging out around the sound stages, and Bill happened to be late that day, so they didn't shoot a dang thing that morning. And Richard's like, "Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm really sorry. He's like, I'm going to talk to somebody, and we're going to come back at the afternoon slot, right? So we go back to the afternoon slot, and it's the Federation Council set from Star Trek 4, where Sarek and the Klingon ambassador are talking to each other.
Oh my God. And I love Mark Leonard's speech on that, but go ahead.
by far the coolest thing that I ever got to do because of Richard Arnold is I saw Sarek.
Oh my God.
I mean, it
In
was
makeup.
unbelievable. So as you know, and they call it slow business for a reason because shooting a movie takes time. So while all that was sort of getting set up, they'd do a take and then you'd go sit down and wait for them to do a little bit more. And keep in mind, this is like 30 or 40 minutes. Grace Lee was there and Richard waltzed us straight over to her and was like, "Oh, Grace Lee, you remember for the twins from the Kansas City and the St. Louis conventions?" I don't know if she did or not, but she said she did. So, who cares, right?
Oh, sure.
So we were waiting for another shot set up. And it's like, oh, okay, I got to sit down. And I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, there's a thing that says guest star. And I'm like, well, I know there's no guest star here because they're all standing over there getting ready to do their thing. And I sat down and the president of the Federation comes straight for me. And he's like, don't get up, don't get up. And he reaches out and he grabs a giant bottle of Tylenol out of the little bag on his director's chair. And
Yeah.
he takes like 4 of them. And he's like, yeah, it's just kind of one of those days.
Well, have you seen that head? Have you seen that head? Of course he needed the Tylenol,
well, the guy in 4 wasn't the
Oh, that's right.
guy.
It wasn't
the bald guy with the
got it. The white. Yeah. Hey Joe, we got stories
awesome.
we can that was awesome.
And
Joe,
very gracious of Richard, who is, friend for life. When you met the guy, he was your friend for life.
That's absolutely true. Joe, our day on the set of filming, did we get in trouble or something? Do you remember that day?
Somebody.
It was I think Patrick and Gates was filming.
Well, no, the trouble we had was somebody snuck in a camera, one of our friends, and took a picture on the captain's chair.
Yeah.
I don't know why I lucked out because I was there for the filming of Star Trek 4 and 5. Matter of fact, I was there on the set, not on the set actually, by the pool when the accident occurred where Jimmy was getting out of the Klingon ship and he slid and fell backwards and got hurt. And was filming it. And they went ahead and broke for lunch. And as a matter of fact, I was able to get on my picture. I got a picture taken with each of them: Jimmy, Walter, George, DeForest Kelly, and Michelle, all in their costumes, and they're all wet because they just came out of the pool and they had to reshoot the whole thing after lunch because Jimmy was all bruised up from the fall. Because as he was falling, if you look at the end credits, as he was falling, he was actually hitting those stairs.
Yes. Yeah.
But I lucked out, I guess, because Gene was the one that always got me in. So I had no time limit. I was there, spend the whole day for Next Generation filming, Deep Space Nine filming, Star Trek 4 and 5.
I remember. I don't know if. I don't know if you were with me or not, but I remember when I'm going to say we because I'm not sure. When we went to the commissary and we had lunch at a table and these group of really rowdy, noisy people came in and one of the guys was bouncing a stinking basketball, sat at the table behind us, and we figured out who these people were. And it was the freaking cast of Cheers, and that was Woody who was bouncing that damn basketball.
Were you with me? Because one of the times we were sitting at the when the cast broke, we went out to eat at the restaurant.
Commissary. Yeah.
Sorry. And they were filming at another stage. They were filming the Hunt for Red October. So
yes, I was.
Table, the cast of the Hunt for Red October all started coming in to eat. So you had the Star Trek in one area and Hunt for Red October in the other area.
Yeah. I remember that. That's freaking incredible. Well, our boy here, Richard Arnold, has crossed the Golden Bridge, the Rainbow Bridge. I'm sorry, and it was premature. He was 66 years old. Richard still had a lot of life still left in him, a lot of his career, but like a few of us, we obtain diseases that we have to keep constant diligence over. Especially me with being diabetic, I'm taking pills twice a day, and some people are worse off than I am. Cancer is really a nasty thing. We can get angry with cancer. We can F cancer all we want, as many times as we want. But eventually, we know what the outcome could be. Let's just put it at that. And we lost another. Oh my God! There's Mike, not Michael here. There's far right, um, Joe.
That's Jerry Doyle.
Mike,
We so lost.
That's right,
Michael
Jerry
Susan-
Doyle.
Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, Jerry Doyle, far right. Richard's in the back row, far left.
Tim Russ,
Tim Russ, Chase Masterson, I see.
Lolita.
Lolita, yeah, and Garrett.
The board kids are in the back.
The Boar Kids, okay.
Yeah, the twins are between Tim Russ, and then you got the one in the red shirt, the other board kid.
Well, who's in the yellow? Who's the girl next to Jerry Doyle?
That's Marty McLean. She was the other board. Remember, there were 3 Borg boys and 1 Borg girl.
Yeah. Let me tell you this quick story, Babylon 5 related, since I see Jerry Doyle, who's in this photo, who is no longer with us as well. And we lost Mira Furlan earlier this week, a couple of days ago. Is no longer with us. But I brain fart on names because I have to remember so many of them so often. Who was the doctor on Babylon 5?
We lost him too. That was
what was his name?
Oh, he's the black guy.
Yes.
I had him on a Star Trek cruise.
Yes, and I know that's why I'm saying I forget names too. But here's my story. So he was at Dragon Con one year, and he was at our hotel. I think that was Dragon Con. Yeah, that was Dragon Con. Richard Biggs, thank you. He and I went to a strip club. And actually, it wasn't Dragon Con where he told me this story. I think I had him in Germany. Long story short, he asked me to give him a wake-up call at a specific time. And that if he literally wanted me to come to his room. He said, Mark, if I don't answer, please get hotel security. Okay. And I didn't get deep into what was all of that about until the next day. Richard Biggs had a heart condition, and it literally keeps him unconscious longer than he liked to be. So if he didn't answer his wake-up call, he really wanted to be waking up because it was dangerous for him to lay in that state. Ultimately, it caught up with him and took his life because that was what Richard Biggs basically died of, was literally a heart condition. And it scares me when we have celebrities who tell us to look out for them as much and as long as they have looked out for us, kept us happy with what they're portraying on TV. They look at certain individuals within, and it's not just us because we were convention management, anybody that they had the pleasure of meeting and felt comfortable with saying, hey, come and check on me or make sure I get back up to my room or yada, yada, yada. This was the convention life. This is how hotel conventions basically were, because the actors would come down to the bar and would be there longer than me half the time. And we'd have to literally make sure they were okay because it was our responsibility to do that. So the fact that Richard has left us, and go ahead, Joe, please.
Since you went a lot to Europe, Jerry, you know what happened to Jerry Doyle, right?
Whoa, but that's your finger, Pat. I think you're in the mic. Here, let me mute you, buddy. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
In the UK,
yeah,
he decided to take a walk outside, got mugged, had his caved in.
Yeah, his head skull caved in. Yeah.
They brought him back. He didn't do well, and a few months later, he passed away.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you were.
Yeah. No, I wasn't at that show, and I recall that happening. So there's really no underlying message in this. It's more of a congratulations and an appreciation of our fans who have gotten to know a lot of celebrities so well that they can in fact report on their medical condition to the rest of the social media world, things that we don't know of. There's been Doctor Who celebrity who died at a con. There's been instances such as that. Say again.
I was there when it happened.
Really? Was that who?
It was Patrick Troughton, and it was at the it was called it was in Macon, Georgia, and this one I was beginning.
Hey,
Jimmy, George, and Patrick. And about
okay.
11 at night, I hear the commotion. I went out, and EMT was taking this person out already covered. He had apparently died in this room. And the am I allowed to cuss here?
Yes.
Okay. The promoter was a fucking asshole. He didn't tell anybody that Patrick had died, and he kept it quiet. No excuse. And then Friday and Sunday, he broke the news that he had died because he didn't want to give any refunds. Then he didn't want to pay to have the body shipped back for the wife. So they had to cremate him
Oh.
to send the body back to England.
Oh.
Wow.
Well,
That was-
yeah.
I didn't know that. That's my favorite Doctor Who too. So
I was so fast that he was done. He never promoted.
Yeah. Wow.
wow.
Well, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, stand by. I'm going through. Yeah.
The little girl in blue,
Yes.
and that's my daughter.
Yes, I know that. I knew that was Ashley. But ladies and gentlemen, we are here to basically say goodbye to our friend. I'm sure that he's in a better place. I'm sad that we didn't get to say a physical goodbye to him, or even over the telephone, or even over the internet. Like I think most people, when they're suffering from a disease, they like to keep it to themselves, make peace with their maker, or even peace with themselves, and it's nobody else's business, in all honesty, on how they like to die. Richard Arnold was a great friend to many of us. If you've listened to the stories that we've shared with you tonight, there was a lot of stories that you guys didn't know about. I've been with Richard from here to in the States to over in Germany, and we've always had good times. He's always gone out to dinner with us. We've had great times at shows where Richard was. Celebrities loved him. Celebrities knew him. It was very interesting to see a celebrity that I probably have never met before in my entire life go up to Richard and give him a nice hug and a squeeze, and Richard was basically like a guardian angel for every Trek actor. Was at every Trek convention. He was their ambassador in a sense, and he did it so well. So, any final words from any of you guys before we sign off?
Mark, I do just want to say, when you think about just the four of us that are on screen here, Richard's generosity, that there are just thousands of us that could call him friend, is amazing.
I agree with you 100%. I'm sure his email boxes were always full. Whether a fan wanted to get a piece of memorabilia that in his upcoming trip to wherever he was going, or where they literally wanted an answer to a Star Trek question. Richard was always there to accommodate. He always had the correct answer. Nobody was there to challenge him, not even the actors who played the role. Sometimes Richard knew their lines more than they did. Tim, how about you?
Well, he was always professional, also personable. He crossed that boundary so well. And, when it came to personal stuff or professional stuff, he gave me what I needed. When we chatted about private stuff and private kind of interests, like we had a great chat about Carry On movies, which we were both obsessed with, these British bad British comedies. We had all these, all these different things that you could go off on any direction. And Richard seemed to know, way more than everybody else. He was the smartest guy in the room oftentimes, and he was loyal as well. And that's what I appreciated.
Yeah. Joe?
Mark, all I can say is that of all the conventions that I've done, over 300, and the 12 Star Trek cruises, I'm not sure if it was Richard Arnold or David McDonald who I had the most at all my shows. The two of them top all the everybody that I ever had. I just don't know if
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
they had new stuff to bring in.
yeah, always. We love the information these guys brought. The rooms were always full. People were drooling at the mouth, waiting to hear something new and different that we're going to go, oh, ooh, wow, all this kind of stuff.
Literally.
This news was fresh for me today, and I put this hastily ready show together and called up my friends, got a hold of them, and said, I need you on. I have yet to check Marina Sirtis's Twitter because she tweets like crazy. I have yet to check Jonathan Frakes or anybody else's Twitter, LeVar Burton, any other celebrity.
Bill Shatner did acknowledge it.
Bill did. Okay, well, great. And I just haven't had time to do it. I rushed straight from work, got here to put this show together, and now I'm going to peruse a little bit before I go to bed to see what kind of accolades people are sharing out there. I have messages from people overseas. In fact, my friends here, we call them the Data family. Oh my God, this shot was in 96. This is when the Data family actually met Richard for the first day. This is in Germany. And I remember this show. I hosted this show. And I know these three guys, Stefan and his brother. And this is the girlfriend of Stefan to the left there. And I know they emailed me today to make sure that I passed on their best wishes. And they sent me this photo of when they were with Richard and Arnold. And they are, in fact, in shock as well. The sci-fi world is losing people. I do believe that in a little bit of jest here, that Betty White will be the last human on the face of the earth after we're all long gone. Betty White will still be around. So go ahead. What's that?
She's from what they call it, the glory years of Hollywood, from the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, that's silver, I think.
Yeah.
Silver years, or I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
Almost nobody left.
Yeah. And I'm not keeping score, but I'm getting a little worn out. When Sean Connery passed, I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Where they go? People that I grew up with, people that I watched on the screen. Obviously older than me when I was watching them on the screen. It's their time. But people like Richard, you don't expect that. People like Mirror, you don't expect that. They have a lot more time left. But somebody decided, nope, we need to call them home now. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, you guys hang in. Don't get off the line yet. I'm going to say thank you so much. I'm going to play a little bit. Well, I can't advance this video, but I can at least show something. If you guys are just coming on late, at least you can watch a little bit of what we started out with. My panelists, hang in. Do not sign off yet, please. Here we go.
Richard, you worked with Gene Roddenberry on the original series.
Not the original series. I'm not quite that old. No.
Okay.
I worked with him from 1976 until 1991. So from the development of Star Trek Phase 2 up through the 5th season of Star Trek The Next Generation.
What was your involvement then? Tell me all about that.
Well, it started off as just being a fan. I met him at the first Star Trek convention in New York in 1972. And I moved out to Los Angeles a couple of years later. And then he moved back onto the Paramount lot. He had been up at Universal. And they started putting together this second series. And I was coming over to run Gracie Whitney's fan club using a spare office that they had and a typewriter. And then they discovered, Gene and Susan Sackett, his assistant, that I had a very good working knowledge of the show. And when fan mail would come in with questions, or other offices on the lot would call over with questions, merchandising or publicity or home video, whatever, I could answer them off the top of my head. They didn't have to look anything up. So
it's almost encyclopedic.
yeah, well, eidetic. It's not photograph, it's eidetic. So I became very useful to them, and I started doing less and less of the fan club and more of helping them out, and eventually that became my own office. I had my own phone extension. I had an overhead number to charge supplies to. I had my name over the door. I had everything except a salary for about 10 years. And then Gene decided it was time the studio started paying me, so I became officially the studio's resident Star Trek expert in 1986.
That's a dream come true for any fan. It's an absolute success story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I never believed what was happening, and I think in 1978, when we did Star Trek the Motion Picture, and as a thank you, Gene made a lot of us extras, I thought, well, that's it. That's the icing on the cake. It can't possibly get better than this. And the next, 30 plus years that have happened since then, the icing has just gotten thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, including being in the last film as well. So
fantastic. What part did he play?
I was one of the Romulans, and yes, they did shave our heads.
Oh, wow.
They